Welcome to the Yukon and North 61. The tribe of these laser rangefinders changed everything. Before the laser rangefinder, the idea for long-range riflery was to really go after velocity. That's why the Magnums were born. And the idea was to shoot a bullet of decent ballistic coefficient as fast as you could. And one of the early ways of doing that, which gave you really low recoil, was the 25-06. 25-06 gave you Magnum speeds with a 120 grain bullet with a ballistic coefficient of up to 0.480, a sectional density of 0.260. They're really well balanced, very fast cartridge that gave you a really good maximum point blank range. And that maximum point blank range is what people used to go after, because you couldn't tell how far something was with any degree of accuracy. So the maximum point blank range that I'm going to be using is based on hitting a 6-inch ball. And that means that what I want to do is I want to work the sights so that I'm shooting it so that it's no more than 3 inches high, and then the bullet rises no more than 3 inches high, and the bullet drops no more than 3 inches down. So I will be able to hit that 6-inch ball with every shot out to a certain amount of range. And the faster you go, the longer you extend that range. And with the example I'm using, about 100 feet per second gives you about an extra around 10 yards. So if you shot 100 foot per second pistol, BB gun, you'd have a point blank range of 10 yards. You'd be able to shoot at 10 yards and the bullet would go at 5 yards, it'd be about 3 inches high, or 4 yards would be 3 inches high, and then at 10 yards it'd be 3 inches low. And then the faster we go, the more we extend that. So let's take a look at some examples. So I'm going to compare the 25-06 with the 243 Winchester, the 270 Winchester, the 7mm Rem Mag, and my favorite, the 30-06, and see how this works out. And one of the things that I wanted to do is use a bullet with a sectional density of 260, which is the heaviest bullet and my favorite bullet in 25-06, the 120 grain. And that'll give you a ballistic coefficient of around 0.480 if it's perfectly shaped. So that means in the 243 I'm running a 108 grain bullet, which is about a 260. In the 25-06 I'm running a 120 grain bullet, which again is a sectional density of 0.260. In 270 you'd have to jump all the way up to a 140 grain bullet to get a 0.260 sectional density. In 7mm Rem Mag you have to go to 150 grains, and in 308 you have to go all the way up to 175 grains. And we'll see how fast we can push them in each one of those cartridges, but we'll also see how much recoil there is, because those are the things that kind of work together. As you go up in caliber, you go up in recoil because you're shooting more and more bullet weight, and if you're wanting to shoot at the same speed, you're getting that much more recoil. So let's see how that works out. And first we're going to start with the 243 versus the 25-06. And I'm really interested in one of those Barrett field crafts because they have a 1 to 7 inch twist, which means you can shoot 108 grain bullets, even 115 grain bullets, fairly slow. You can't get those bullets up to 3,000 feet per second in a 21-inch barrel of the Barrett Fieldcraft. So I got 2850 as a 108 grain velocity. Could you go higher in a longer barrel? Yeah, but that's what I decided. And the real advantage of the 243 is because it uses a very small amount of powder, is your recoil is really low. Like it's, 13 foot-pounds. So if I look at recoil as a ratio, when you compare 243 to 25-06, and if you give 25-06 the 21 foot-pounds of the 25-06 in a 7-pound rifle, I'm shooting 7-pound rifles across the way, the 25-06 with a ratio of 1, if you make that your kind of constant as 1, that 243 is at 0.63, something like that. That's incredibly, that's really, really a low recoil impulse. And that's why one of those Barrett Fieldcrafts for a young shooter would be really, really amazing. Again, the problem with 243 is where the 25-06 gets 1,200 foot-pounds out at 500 yards, which I think is a good minimum. The 243 won't even come close to that. So the 243, you start having power and range limitations. With the 25-06, you can go right out to 500 yards. And it's the smallest cartridge that allows you to do that 25 caliber. So that's the 243 versus the 25-06. People ask me, what about the 25-06 versus the 270? So, I mean, let's take a look at that chart. So the 25-06, again, has about 12% less recoil to shoot a bullet a little bit faster of a .260, because the 140 grain bullets, 270, probably 3,000 feet per second is as fast as you're going to go. 120 grain bullet in a 25-06, you could reach 3,100 with careful loading. So you're 100 feet per second low, so that means your maximum point blank range on the 25-06 is actually 10 yards further with a little bit less recoil. Now, Jack O'Connor shot everything on the continent with a 130 grain bullet, which has less sectional density than a 120 grain 25-06 bullet. Can the game tell 10 grains of bullet weight? I'd have a hard time with that. So if you use a 120 grain bullet with a sectional density of .260 of proper modern construction, you can do as well as Jack O'Connor with his 270. So which is better, 25-06, 270? For heavy game, the 270, because you can go all the way up to 160 grain bullets, which is really, really handy. But for game the size of Caribou and under, I think the 25-06 has is just slightly better. Now, what about if you use heavier bullets still and use a laser rangefinder? Well, you know, the 270 might be able to get more ballistic coefficient out of some of those heavier bullets, because you can shoot heavier bullets. So the 270 gets probably back into contention. But really, 25-06 out to 500 yards is pretty equivalent to a 270, in some ways even better, because you're getting that less recoil. 12%. Does that mean much? Probably not, but it means something. Now, one of the rifles which has exactly the same maximum point blank range when you go at 150 grain bullets is the 7mm Rem Mag. But the 7mm Rem Mag now has 50%, almost 50% more recoil, and that starts to become a little bit meaningful. That's why a lot of guys with lightweight 7mm Rem Mags use a brake. I don't like a brake. I'd rather not brake. Can you shoot a 7mm Rem Mag in a 7-pound rifle all in with your scope and everything? Yes, you can. But it's a little harder. It's a little harder to do. So you'll have exactly the same maximum point blank range between the 25-06 and the 7mm Rem Mag if you're using 150 grain bullets and the 7mm Rem Mag old school. And the 25-06 is going to shoot right with it. And 1,200 foot-pounds to 500 yards. Is that enough? Yes. I think that's enough for something like a Caribou. So if you're shooting old school, 25-06 again is in many ways better than a 7mm Rem Mag, because it's got that less recoil. Again, 7mm Rem Mag, you can shoot longer bullets, better ballistic coefficients, with a laser rangefinder, where you can now easily find how far your drops are. The 7mm Rem Mag, if you're shooting past 500 yards, has advantage. What about the old standby and my favorite, 30-06? Man, this is all one take. The 30-06, now you got to reduce velocities. And the interesting thing about the 30-06 to me is it's very much like the 6.5 Creedmoor in sectional density to velocities. So anything a 6.5 Creedmoor will do, a 30-06 will do, only a 30-06 will give you way more energy. So I really like the 30-06, but compared to the 25-06, when you're going old school, you're only getting 2850 feet per second. So your maximum point blank range, let's see, goes quite a bit down. I didn't write it down. I'll have to redo this. 284 yards. So you have, about 25 yards less point blank range. And I've tricked my 30-06 by using the laser rangefinder, a little bit lighter bullets, that I've got it right out to 500 yards with a ballistic reticle. So sometimes I break my own rules. It's also got 1.36 times the recoil of a 25-06 when you're using bullets with that ballistic coefficient or sectional density of 0.260. So, you know, I still take the 30-06 out because of grizzly bears. But if it was simply to shoot caribou or sheep, and I didn't have to worry about defense, I would just take the 25-06 because it's a little easier to shoot well. But the 30-06 with that 28 foot-pounds or so of energy in a light 7-pound rifle is the maximum for a lot of people to shoot really well. And the 7mm Rem Mag is right almost in there, so it's the maximum for people to shoot well, for most people that aren't super trained. And it's just easier to shoot well. But, you know, when you get 50% less recoil, 40% less recoil, it's even easier to shoot well. And you can shoot well from all different positions. So, yeah, the high ballistic coefficients with the laser rangefinder of today give you less wind drift. They give you a little bit increased range. But if you're shooting only out to 500 yards, which is basically what I do, there is no advantage to going with these brand new high ballistic coefficient, very efficient cartridges like the 6.5 Creedmoor. I'm not interested in one whatsoever because I'm a 500-yard shooter, and at 500 yards, there are some advantages. If my laser rangefinder breaks, I'm going to go back to relying on point-blank range, and I'm still going to be good out to 400 yards with that 25-06. All I do is sight it into 300 yards, which I can, 308 yards. Amazing. And then if something's 400 yards away, just hold it a little bit high on its back. That's the old school way of doing that. And you don't need a laser rangefinder to shoot right out to 400 yards, which is a heck of a way. And that's one less piece of gear, and if the gear breaks, you don't have to worry about it. So I really like having the versatility. The other thing about the 25-06 that's a real advantage is that 1 in 10-inch twist allows you to shoot lighter bullets really well. 100-grain bullets at 33.50? Whoa. If I lived back in Saskatchewan in the Great Plains, what a coyote gun that would be. And you can go right up to 3,700 feet per second with lighter bullets. So you've got a rifle that really spans really small little itty-bitty things that you'll put a terrible hurt on and blow them to pieces, all the way up to something the size of caribou. Pretty good, versatile rifle, but it is old school. It's not noose, doesn't have any of the, you won't read much about it. But it was a very, very good design back when I saw my first one in Nunavut, where a guy did unbelievable execution on caribou with his 25-06. Just unbelievable. And it's still just as good now today. Are there some disadvantages? Yeah. But this is about the advantages. So that's all I'm going to say.